Hey everyone, so my name is Mike. I'm the CEO and one of the founders of a company called Drone Deploy. We make drone software for commercial use. It's actually software that works across a variety of industries, and fire is one of them. So what do? In general, we provide a bird's eye view of people's businesses. That's kind of the general thing of what we do. The sites that people care about. We enable people to fly drones, capture data, and very simply produce data about the sites they care about, using predominantly DJI drones, but all sorts of data and all sorts of drones. We produce information about, this is coal terminals, we do volumetric work, we do real estate construction, potatoes, this is farming, and all sorts of different spectrum. These are all the capabilities of drones. And these drones have value across pretty much any industry. If you think about any sort of industry, it's likely that if that industry is outside, that it could use a drone strategy. Fire and search and rescue, emergency response, of course. These operations are happening outside. It's important to get a context and awareness of what's going on. You can use a drone. So we see a future where there's a drone on every single job site, every single site that people care about. Quick thing on what we do, and then I'll be able to share a little bit about fire, what we do specifically for fire and search and emergency response. So we're Drone Deploy. We are a private company. We build software for commercial drone operations, any data collection. The software exists on mobile and on the web and enables a user to be able to collect data about pretty much any space. And it does this quite simply. You can use pretty much any drone. You can fly it. That's the first part of any drone operation. You need to fly the drone, collect the data. That data, if you want to actually make it into real, not just images or video, but actually repeatable data sets, you need to be able to process it. And the last step, you need to be able to analyze it. So if you can imagine in a use case in the fire industry that we've seen people using our product for is planning of responses. If you want to create a plan, we understand as a lot of fire departments actually create specific plans for buildings that are at risk. First thing they'll need to do, they want to map that building, is fly the building. They create a flight plan. The drone will fly autonomously. They get a whole set of images, 200 images. They take those images, they upload them to a server for it to be processed, and then they get the data back, a bit like in a Google Maps interface where they could mark things off and expose, okay, these are the places where that might be most at risk. These are the entry points where you might bring in your trucks. These are the fire hydrants. And you can see all of those things in really high resolution from drone data. And I want to show you a specific use case. We were fortunate to be able to participate in the last in a demo with the Menlo Fire Department, and through that we were able to see why somebody would use drones in fire or search and rescue. In this case, it was a search and rescue mission, and the key reasons why you would use a drone were: first, you get high resolution data. You want to be able to find someone, you need to be able to see the ground at a high resolution so you can actually identify not just a tree or a space, but an actual person. You might be looking for the color of a shirt or something like that. You want to be able to do that immediately on demand. You can't wait for an airplane to get up in the air. It might take a couple of days. You want to be able to do it as soon as you get to the site. So that's something you can do very easily with a drone. You can have one in the back of your truck, you can press a button and it can lift off. You want something that's easy to use. Drones can be really easy to use. You need a small amount of training, but once you've understood the basics, it's simply a matter of pressing a button to launch a drone, collect data. You want tools that can be cost effective. For us, what we would like to see is a world where there's a drone in every single emergency response vehicle. You can do that with the modern drones, which only cost $1,000 or cost the price of a laptop. If you can afford a laptop, you can likely afford a drone that is effective at getting data for emergency response. The last thing, which is a new thing, is you can actually collect data in real time. So for a while, I'd say for the past 2 or 3 years, you could have flown a drone and got back an FPV feed easily on your phone. And now this is a ubiquitous technology. Before it was a little bit cumbersome. You had to be able to build your own drone. Now you can buy a drone off the shelf, and with that you'll be able to get an FPV feed. So that's what real-time data has looked like for the past couple of years. but you could never get real data that was repeatable, an actual map or 3D model. Now, for the first time, you can actually start doing it. There are technologies, like we have one called Field Scanner, where you can actually fly the drone and it will make a map while the drone is in the air. You can imagine that has a ton of value for emergency response. You can see the lay of the land. You might be able to see your incident. You could see the fire break line, things like that, while the drone is flying and be able to respond immediately. Specifically for search and rescue, in this operation, there are a couple of real-world challenges. It's difficult to manage real data capture. If you've got a drone, using a drone in a typical sense is somebody flying a drone with his fingers, looking at the screen, trying to figure out where to fly, go a little bit to the right, a little bit forward. To actually manage that data capture is quite hard. To analyze a whole area, you need to make sure that you have a systematic pattern. To do that manually is very, very difficult. To do that at the same time while managing the airspace and making sure there's no aircraft or you're not flying in an unsafe space is something you've got to go and use separate pieces of software for. And it's difficult to coordinate both the emergency services team and the drone operations. You don't want to be flying a drone while there might be a helicopter coming into the vicinity. All of these things make it really difficult for a search and rescue team to use a drone without a whole set of people focusing on the operation, and takes the focus away from collecting the actual insight into where a victim might be. There are some solutions though. In the use case that we were able to go through, we were able to use automation in flight. If you use a product, there are many out there, a product like Drone Deploy, you can fly the drone automatically on specific assigned paths. You can guarantee that you can capture all the area. You can get the real-time data, you can see the video feed, and you can get a map of what's going on. You can get really high-resolution data. This is the satellite layer, and that's what you can see with the photo. You can actually spot someone. If you typically just fly with your fingers and manually, you can get the FPV feedback, but that's of low resolution, and you can't see nearly as much as if you had the actual photos. So what was found in this demonstration was actually far more effective to fly the drone out, capture the data, wait for it to come back, take the SD card out, and actually go through each photo individually. It was faster and easier to find the victim than it was to look at the video screen. After you've done that, you've got a picture, you can see that where the victim is in the photo. You actually need to be able to know where to go. And so that's where the field scan, actually having a real-time map producer, is really useful. You could get the context of where that photo was compared to the map, and you could walk out. You could actually use the map to see your position on the map as you walk towards where the victim would be. So the result of using this kind of technology is that the team can focus rather on finding the victim as opposed to operating the drone. And that's a really important thing for us, is when you introduce new technology, you don't want to make that the action in itself. Obviously, it's to serve a purpose. And the more people we can get focused on finding the person as opposed to working technology, the better. Yeah, these types of core technologies, making drones easy to use, making the data really fast to capture, is what's making drones really valuable in this space. I think one thing that's interesting is that the drone software is expanding beyond just the capabilities we're talking about, just collecting the data and using automating flight. Now there are ways to actually customize the drone software. So you can build specific workflows for search and rescue or for fire that serve the specific needs that the industry has. So I'll finish off on some information about the industry, what we're seeing as a company. One of the things is when you talk about drones, a lot of people get excited about the latest and greatest technology. And that is, of course, exciting. I'm a technologist. I'm always looking at the newest best thing. But what's interesting is that what the market is mostly consuming is there are new technologies, but they're relatively inexpensive technologies. So on a platform like Drone Deploy, this is the usage pattern of the drones on our system. And what's interesting is that, first thing is 97% of all operations being done today with drones commercially are being done with multi-rotors. There are reasons to use fixed wing, so that's why the 3% people use fixed wing, but that's declining. It's because the rate of improvement of multi-rotors is so high that basically it's making the reason to use a fixed wing smaller and smaller. Quadcopters can't yet achieve the same sort of ranges and cover the same number of acres as a fixed wing, but every year they get incrementally better. You can now cover about 120 acres with a normal Phantom 4, with a Phantom 4 Pro, which is quickly becoming the most popular drone on our platform. You see that it's the rise and fall of that technology is happening quickly. They're really inexpensive, so people buy a $1,000 quadcopter. They expect them to be used for about a year, maybe 18 months before they buy a new one. It's retired. So I better get to.
I'm going to stop you there.
Cool.
Sorry.
That's
Just
fine.
keep the schedule tight.
If you guys have any questions, I'll be in the back, so you can ask any questions.
Sorry, thanks.
Cool.